Shark Tank happened because I didn't want my application to get lost amidst the 40,000 applicants. So I just DM'd them and said, yeah, no special treatment. Just want to make sure that my application was received. And in 2 weeks, we got the card.
Are you ready to hear more? Welcome to the Bulletproof Your CBG Brand podcast, where we discuss tactics and strategies that you need to give your brand the unfair competitive advantage it deserves. Hello, I'm Dan Lohman. Now, let's roll up our sleeves and get started. Hank, thanks for coming on today. Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you're at? I also want to hear you talk about how you found this product and how your friend introduced it to you. But before we go any further into your story, I want to frame this for founders. Hank's journey is not just a Shark Tank story, it's a story about founder fit, product market fit, resilience, and building a brand around experience. That matters because most products do not win because they're interesting. They win because shoppers understand them, experience them, and come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I thought that I was going to be good at marketing Miracle Berries to the whole country, I was in retail and I did sales and I worked with food as a food server. So I got to see how restaurants worked and I learned a lot about communication and timing. And this is where I really became a people pleaser type of person. And I would actually get so good after 10, 11 years. I would take the menu away from a couple or anyone who's dining at my fine dining establishment and kind of take the pressure off of them. And I would give them the choice going down the list, just having memorized the entire menu and knowing everything that's really good or in season, things like that. And let them know, like, and if there's anything that I miss that I think that's going to be great that wasn't great for you and it just kind of missed the bucket, I'm going to buy it myself. So I'm going to take it off the tab. And that would give them a lot of confidence and trust in me. And they would come back and ask for me constantly because they knew that I would give them an experience, not just something like a night um, in the restaurant, but a night to remember. And so I kind of took that with me into retail after 11 years of working in like places like Cheesecake Factory and Claim Jumper and fine dining. I started a business with cell phones, and so I would help people um, see the value in what they were getting and versus what they were paying. And it actually surprised me because I didn't think I would enjoy that job, but I enjoyed it so much that we started a business out of it, and that was my first uh, experience being a founder. And I got to work with my two best friends at the time, and we called it Mobilecom. And we grew so fast. It shocked me. We grew to about 16 stores in 18 months. And I was in charge of doing all of the hiring and the training and the recruiting. And and we were very successful. What I didn't foresee is the '08 crash that happened. And um, Sprint, who was our carrier that was paying us so much at the time, told everybody that if you didn't have 30 locations, that they were going to need to cut the commissions in half. And this is where I learned a lot of lessons, but the most valuable takeaway was if you don't own the product that you're selling, then you're completely at the mercy of another company or the market or something like that. And so also, we probably were at over 100 employees at the time. If you're that large, you cannot sustain a 50% revenue cut. Like if you need to um, experience 50% revenue cut, you better be pretty lean because a lot of people are depending on you for payroll. And we were lucky that we were able to sell all of our locations within 2 weeks. But that opportunity taught me a lot and allowed me to move out to California, where I've been since '08. And here is actually, when you talk about having something that you feel like cannot ever lead to something good. Like I was just kind of crippled by all the effort that I put in and having to sell within 2 weeks.
Hank, let me pause you right there because there's a lesson every founder needs to hear. You learned very early on that if you don't control the product, you don't control the business. That applies in retail too. If you do not control the story, the execution, and the shopper experience, then someone else is deciding your outcome.
Um, I look back and thought, well, if that didn't happen, I would have never moved to California. I would have never met my best friend, Giuliano, and we would have never had this, what I call my calling with Nature's Wildberry. And it turns out that because I had all this restaurant experience, I was kind of a snob when it came to food. And he had this really amazing restaurant in the heart of downtown Santa Monica. They also had another location in West Hollywood, and they started out in the Bay Area. So they had three locations, and they served raw food, and they attracted a lot of the raw vegans. And Giuliano's restaurant called Planet Raw served raw honey on every dessert. And if you've ever been in the food world, especially restaurants, and you've got something on the menu that's never selling, you know that you're losing a lot of money. And for years, he did not have a good substitute for his desserts, and he's just losing money over these things. Funny thing about Giuliano is that his favorite flavor is bitter, and his second favorite flavor is sour. And I looked up the statistics on this, and 4% of Americans claim that bitter is their favorite flavor. Only four, and 5% say that their favorite flavor is sour. So, like, in my mind, like, he's like this top 10 super taster, but he could not pick out what's a good dessert for the life of him. He's just got the worst taste in sweets. And I identify with the 55% of Americans that say that sweet is their favorite flavor, and 35% of Americans that say that like savory umami is their second favorite flavor. So that's where I came in, and he was like, "Would you help me design this dessert menu?" And I said, say less, like I'm 31 years old, and I will definitely help you design your next dessert menu. And he said, well, I'm going to use these berries. They're called miracle berries. They're kind of magic. And I thought, magic berries, I call BS on this, because at 31, you tend to know like the entire world, like you have everything figured out. And I thought if there were berries that were like Jack and the Beanstalk beans, I would have heard about them by now. And he said, no, really, just give it a shot. Like, you know, humor me. And with all my skepticism, I went in, and in 30 seconds flat, I was proven wrong by this miracle berry. And I didn't come up with the name. That had been called miracle berries for decades and decades. They're native to West Africa in Ghana. And when you study like world history back in the day, you learn like in Pangea times, West Africa, Ghana shared a border with Miami, Florida. And so they have the same type of soils, the same type of climate. And when the miracle berries came over to America in the early 1900s, they grew like weeds in Miami just because the plant took really well to it. And it turns out that the largest farmer in the Western Hemisphere was supplying Giuliano, which became my supplier. And these miracle berries ended up transforming my life. So for the first time, I could eat something that was healthy, like a green juice. That's how I got hooked. I had green juice that had dandelions that were, before the berry I couldn't eat just because they're so bitter, but they are very, very healthy. And so I would have dandelions and celery, forget about it, but cucumber and lemon, for example, and then on the berry, as I put it, that would taste like a green Jolly Rancher candy. And long of the short is too late, but the long of the short is that I was improving my dietary habits, but tasting candy instead of tasting the health part. And in a place like LA, people notice when you start looking and acting healthier, and they would all ask, "What is this secret that you've got?" And I would be like, "Oh, you're not going to believe me. I won't. Don't get me started." And they were like, "No, really, what is your secret?" And then I would give them a frozen miracle berry and completely blow them away. Like, everyone's reaction is very, very similar.
By the way, I'm going to be eating a lot of cough drops here, so I'm not sure that this is going to be the best experiment for the berries, but I have tried them before. For anyone listening, we are going to do something a little different. Hank sent me the product before the interview. I'm going to try it during the conversation. This matters because this is an experiential product. You can talk about it all day, but the real proof happens when someone actually experiences it.
Actually,
But
actually, I think that it would be because
yeah.
um, this is basically like astronaut food,
Oh, okay.
and when you go in space, I've heard it's a lot like eating with a cold
Yeah.
because all the blood rushes to your extremities and no one can taste. And so literally they'll put hot sauce on everything just to taste anything.
Really?
And yeah, and so my one of my goals, long-term goals, is to because you can't put powders in space, but you can put berries. Yeah, pretty excited that I actually think that we're going to have something to do with improving quality of life. But anyway, since you have a cold or whatever, it's kind of going to be like, you're an astronaut, and this is kind of maybe like the flavor enhancing will do a lot more to like make you taste better. I don't know.
Now,
It's and
I've already
it,
got the cough drop in my mouth. Is that
it's
okay
an
if I just do it
experiment.
now?
Let's just I'm totally down to try. I would like to capture it on the podcast just so that other people can see like, holy, this is freaking the last thing that I expected for this to do is to work, and it actually freaking works. But honestly, if you want to skip the podcast and you want to do it right now, I couldn't care less.
Actually,
Because
we're recording.
oh, we're recording. Oh, okay, okay.
So I've already got the cough drop in my mouth. If
Okay,
I
cool.
eat it now, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
Okay.
try it. Let's try it. Normally we
First,
say start with a clear palate, but I want to try. I'm so interested in new things. Like experimenting has become like this daily routine, this daily habit. So I've become a very curious person. But the whole goal is to take the berry and let it coat your entire tongue. And since you've done it before, you've graduated. But any new person, I always recommend taking two pieces. That way, you don't miss out on the first experience and you learn how the berry works because it's going to be light and airy, kind of like popcorn. And most people are not familiar with freeze-dried foods. So just freeze-dried in itself is a novelty. And then you add this next layer of being like I call it an anti-additive because every sweetener you put in your drink or in your food. And this, you don't do that. You keep your food and your drink separate and you let the berry coat your tongue. And so it has to be 30 seconds. I'm taking this moment to just kind of gab away. But I think it's been a close to 30 seconds. I don't want to rush it. I'm kind of
no,
excited
no.
though. So
But actually,
sometimes,
there's a difference. There is absolutely difference. Let me frame this. I am so sick
okay,
and tired of eating all the cough drops because of my
yeah,
throat. I'm trying to get rid of this thing since the last time we talked. But
right.
yeah, it doesn't taste disgusting, icky, the way it used to. So no, I'm thrilled. It's made a difference.
Cool. Very
And
cool.
I have my lemon juice right here.
All
It's
right,
like
let's give it a shot. So it's just lemon and water?
straight lemon.
Oh, just lemon. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
and I like lemon juice, but no, this tastes very different. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I like to add a little bit of water because I'm a huge lemonade geek. And the more water you add dilutes it, the more lemon juice ratio to water, the sweeter it'll be. So you can leave out all of the artificial sweeteners, all the sugars, all the added stuff, and just go with straight Mother Nature, lemon juice and water. And same thing if you substitute the water for unsweetened iced tea or anything that's unsweetened, you can experiment with that too. So thank you, Dan. This was a great way. You completely caught me by surprise. I was not
No, this is
expecting
good. So
us
thank you.
to lead off with that, but what a cool experience.
Yeah, actually, it worked out really well. In fact, actually, I was telling you that we tried it before, and I like it. I mean, I'm impressed.
Now, as a connoisseur, no right or wrong, obviously. I'm just curious.
No,
Foodie to foodie, have you tasted something that reminds before that the berry reminds you of?
actually, a fresh pomegranate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because when first bite into a pomegranate, it kind of has that hang to it,
Yeah.
and then it gets sweeter by the second somehow.
Hmm.
If you love pomegranates, try the pomegranate on the berry. It
Oh,
is
okay.
going to blow you away. It's a
Well,
whole new
and on that
level.
note, the difference between a pomegranate that you go to the store versus a fresh one, organic,
Oh,
9 day difference. So yeah, but that's what it reminds me of, an organic pomegranate that just got picked.
exactly. And a lot of people, because the lemon is the classic thing to go to when you try the Miracle Berry out and you want to prove that it works. A lot of people will have the lemon juice out of the bottle. The problem with these berries at the time was that they're so darn perishable. Like you pick it off the bush, and you put it on the counter, and within about 2 hours, the magic that's held within the pulp, it's a glycoprotein that occurs naturally, and it's called miraculin. Well, that miraculin withers away and doesn't work after about 2 hours just sitting on a tabletop. And it takes a little less than 2 days to wither in the refrigerator and less than 2 weeks in the freezer. And so I'm having to have overnight shipping, which only works Monday through Thursday. You can't order it on Friday. And it has to come all the way from Miami, and it has to have dry ice. And all of this adds to the cost of the berries. And so it was getting to be about $10 on average per berry, which for me, was the only thing that made healthy things taste good. And so if I'm like saying I'm going to have $10 to this juice, I'm going to have to, make this juice at home. I can save money there, and it cost me about $7 for a liter. And so it'd be about $17 total, which I justified like if I had a liter at Whole Foods, or for example, that would be 15, but I know that I'm getting having this be organic and I'm making it myself, and it's actually tasting much, much better than anything I could buy in the store. And so that's kind of how I justified it in my mind. But if I instead of if I bought 100 instead of 50 at a time, then the price would get closer to about $7 per berry. And the only problem was that I was wasting berries. Some of them would go bad in the freezer, and so I didn't like wasting food. So it was between $7 and $10, and I knew that there had to be a better way, but I did not want to be the person to solve this. I did not want to be the food industry person. I thought, I can't compete with Pepsi or Coke or Mondelez or anybody in the food world. And there are professionals that definitely know about this miracle berry. So they're going to be the ones to take it over. And after 3 years, no one did. And so I'm going to stop now, but that's how Giuliano and I kind of looked at each other and thought, this might be our calling.
I want to connect this to something every founder wrestles with. Product market fit is not just whether people like your product, it's whether the product solves a real problem in a way people understand, repeat, and share. That is the part most founders underestimate. That's interesting. So let me back up a bit. When I watched you on Shark Tank, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you talked about how, because of the berries, you were able to retrain yourself to eat good food. Please share how it helped you lose a lot of weight. So let's talk about that transformation. And the reason I want to talk about that is because you've already hinted at this. How did that come about? You gave Julian credit for finding it on Shark Tank, but did he just recommend it? How did you end up trying it?
It was actually more of me wanting to avoid diabetes. I got diagnosed as pre-diabetic, and I did not want to live the rest of my life, or even a portion of my life, with type 2. And the weight actually became a byproduct of me just wanting to put these macro and micronutrients into my body. It was actually, and I got inspired like my entire life through movies, and I saw this documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And I don't think that I remember seeing a documentary that has made me like kind of cry, but it spoke to me in a way because um, this guy was a CEO of a company, and he was, like the title suggests, overweight, obese, and very sick because of it, and so sick that he nearly died. And so he kind of learned about this macro micronutrient through his journey with juice fasting. And I was never that brave to juice fast, but it did kind of teach me like I need these macro micronutrients. I am eating just because of taste. So if it's fried, I'm in. If it's breaded, I'm in. I was kind of happy and bragged a little bit that I never ate a salad. You know what I mean? Like I was the guy that rebelled against his mom, who has her master's in nutrition and taught me how to eat healthy and stuff like that. And then uh, after watching it, I bought a Brayville juicer, I think just like everybody else who watched the documentary, and it sat there for months not being used. And the problem with this juicing business is that if it doesn't taste great, you're not going to repeat the process. So usually the green juices have some sort of apple, pineapple, pear, agave, honey. These are the type of things that, sweeten it up and make you want to come back for more, unless you're like Giuliano or somebody else that just really loves that tart, sour, bitter flavor. And that just couldn't work for me. I could, like maybe it could if I tortured myself for a month and a half or two. Like, there are ways that you can change your taste palette. But going through that, just I never wanted to go through that because it was a little bit too close to torture. And so, but the berries, as soon as Giuliano gave me this berry, I thought, dang, what else can I use this for? So I started experimenting with concoctions like, the stuff that you would see in those little bottles, like the apple cider vinegar cocktails, or the ginger, or the blah blah blah, fill in the blank. And that actually started tasting really freaking good, and so I would make those for myself. And then a little bit later on, I thought, what could I do for salads? And so I would go to these salad places and get like a big old bowl of salad like this, and if I felt like eating a ton, I would just binge eat on a salad. And make sure that the dressing was a healthy dressing, and fill up on a dang salad. So these are the type of things that ended up helping me reverse this pre-diabetic condition that I was in. And I just started losing weight.
That's important because so many founders get criticized for solving a problem that looks simple from the outside, but the real problem is never just the product, it's the behavior behind it. If a product helps someone make a better choice consistently, that can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I got a lot of backlash for this Shark Tank episode because I was telling people that I identify with those people that are emotional eaters, and it's called binge eating disorder, where you're just sometimes, sometimes discipline doesn't work for you, and it's like about 80% of the time you can be super disciplined and you can say, I'm not going to have that, and that's exactly what you need for that day. But when the cravings really hit, like the 20% of the time that you give in to them, the berry's there for me to kind of use to my benefit. It's like a tool in the toolbox that it's like, okay, if I really need something sweet at midnight, I'm gonna have this tart cherry juice, or, this unsweetened cranberry juice or something, and it will taste so freaking sweet that it'll satisfy that craving. And have other benefits too. So that's the why behind it and the how. And then thank God I just had the right who, which was Giuliano, because I knew I couldn't do this by myself, Dan. I have so much respect for founders who are solo founders, but this is not something that couldn't be talking with you today. Definitely would have nosedived and bombed in the first couple of years if I had attempted this without Giuliano. And I shared that, I put in 125, which was my life savings and inheritance, and Giuliano put in 25, but we were 50-50 partners, and I get asked about that a lot. But it wouldn't have worked if I gave Giuliano less than half. I mean, forget about it. Like, I didn't give it to him. First of all, he earned the whole freaking half for sure.
Mhm.
Like, even to this day, we talk every single day about what we're doing, and how the progress of that, and we're making decisions together every single day. So being able to go to bed at night trusting in your partner that, he's making the right decisions and has your back on everything, is something that money can't buy. So I know how privileged I am, and I never take a day for granted that I get to work with my best friend.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, most people would be, that you're lucky to be able to do that. And by the way, I'm sorry that people shamed you because I hate it when they do that because, a lot of people, different things work for different people. And a lot of people have been struggling to lose weight. I know I did. I used to be Joe Athlete, bad divorce, whole different story, but I gained a lot of weight and I was struggling to lose it for a long time. Finally figured it out. But my point is, different things work for different people. But I remember talking to people, I was like, well, just eat less. I was like, God, I wish I would have thought of that. I'm
Yeah,
just
I
kidding.
know. Just
But
control what you put in your mouth.
yeah, I was like, hey, I eat healthier than you do. I eat that kind of stuff. But I
And
mean,
when
I
I
don't
was an
eat.
athlete, I
Yeah,
thought the exact same way. But you're younger, and the human condition is to kind of need to experience it before you understand. And the
yeah,
same thing goes with the berry too, because talking about it just doesn't know justice. I could talk till I'm blue in the face, but people can't really wrap their minds around how it works or what it's for, all of that stuff until they actually experience it for themselves. And for that reason, I knew that we did not need to take investment right away. This was going to be a long commitment on my part. And I gave myself 20 years,
mm,
because I needed to know that I had founder fit and that the product had market fit. And, Giuliano and I both were able to, kind of transform our relationship from being best friends to being co-founders. And all this stuff needed to be proven out. And I gave it 5 years, and the pandemic turned it into six with Shark Tank being our investors. And everyone asked me like, how helpful are they? And just today, I'm on the phone with Mark Cuban's team, and Lori is so just a total delight. And they are very engaged, and I think a lot of it has to do with how we structured our deal, but we can get into that later. But I knew that this wasn't going to be something that, we can just light money on fire and have the whole country get swept away, throw it in every Starbucks or whatever. This was going to have to be person to person, like literally like influencer to, fan base. Shark Tank has helped out tremendously. I estimate that we've probably had 100 million viewers just with all the re-airs that we've had on Shark Tank. But still to this day, 500 million views on social media. Ask 100 people if they know about Nature's Wild Berry or if they've ever had a Miracle Berry, and still to this day, 99 will say, "What are you talking about?" So this is day one. For me, I get to wake up very excited on the strategy, and I know that we're on the ground floor. And I feel like, we're halfway through in June. We'll have hit our 10-year anniversary. And, if you're keeping track at home, that means I've got 10 more years at least. But I think it'll probably take, longer than that. And I know that I'm comparing ourselves to, the greats. I'm trying to, I'm not trying to like put that out there publicly, but I'm comparing in my mind. I want to be around way longer than I am. I want this company to be around in its 75th year or its 125th year, 150th year. So that's kind of what I'm building to. And I'm encouraged because the effect works on everybody. You just have to, follow the instructions or do it right. Like you can't imagine it being a tablet and you sucking it through the skin. Like that doesn't let it work. The pulp has to get to your tongue. And I've done, countless demos, and I've told people like next to them, I've said, okay, we're going to do this for 30 seconds, and then they swallow after five. So it's like you really have to you can't rush that part. But if you do those things, then it'll work on you. And we're just driven by taste. And I think that the value proposition is there. That if you want to have health, like the enemy is how healthy things just taste. That's the enemy. It's not a brand, it's not a group of people. It's just a healthy food. We've kind of lived in a culture where we've made taste king, and we can't help that anymore. And it's just a kind of accepted fact that the worse stuff things are for you, the better they taste. And so, in the first few years, my thing was just all about making healthy foods taste better. But I learned a valuable lesson like about halfway through, which is that if people can't wrap their minds around the berry and they have to try it first, don't lead with like making the unpleasant thing taste better because they can't understand that. Now we started leading with, we're going to make that thing that you can't believe taste better, taste even better. Like that's a little bit easier for them to like imagine because um if you start talking about how bad things taste, I think you've turned off half or more of the people right out of the gate. But if you start talking about like their favorite foods, then they'll stick around and listen. So that's kind of the different positioning. But I learned that during Shark Tank times. And I'm so happy that I get to work with these award-winning chefs and chefs that aren't even award-winning, but they just are so committed and dedicated to their work. And they don't think in the way that you would expect people to think, which is they don't feel like the berry makes them less of a chef because they are very um, confident in their abilities to make food taste delicious. What they view the berry as is more of like a condiment, more of like, well, you cook with butter and you use spices. And, like I kind of, to simplify it, I think of we live in a world of hot dogs and hamburgers, but no ketchup. And I'm trying to introduce ketchup to everybody. Well, think about how many more hot dogs and hamburgers we could sell now that we have ketchup.
There's so much here that I'd like to unpack. Let's shift from the personal transformation to the business. You had something people reacted to immediately, but that does not automatically mean you have a scalable product. This is where founder discipline matters. How did you know that this was a business and not just a cool experience? Please talk about that process.
Well, I'm working as a manager at this Sprint store in the middle of West LA in Brentwood. And it gives me an access to an unlimited number of people walking in my door. So usually when you're getting your cell phone upgraded or switching plans or whatever, it's like an hour or two process. But I started giving people the option of trying this berry because I would have this liter of green juice out on the counter as I'm going through my day. And they're like, "What are you drinking?" I'm like, "I'm drinking my green juice." And they're like, "Gross." And I'm like, "Actually, it tastes like a Jolly Rancher candy." And they're like, "No way." And I'm like, and next to me was a Jersey Mike's that always had its citrus next to the fountain drinks. And so, they would be very happy to give me some lemons. And so I'd go next door and give them the berry demo with the citrus and then blow their minds away. And I noticed that it happened on every single person. And then they would bring in friends who have never tried it before. And then this is how I'm not wasting my frozen berries. And it's so predictable. And they would all say the same thing, like very encouraging feedback, like, please make this a thing. So I did that for about 3 years, and I set up the Google alerts to find out if anyone was working with this miracle berry, this miracle fruit, and no one would. I think that they looked at it as a huge liability, like if they were to go into this miracle berry world, this universe, they're looking at decades of, or hundreds of millions of dollars of education, and a lot of people don't want to take that time because something needs to sell itself on the shelf within like what, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, if you're lucky you have that time. And I looked at it as instead of a liability, I looked at it as an opportunity because I can talk for a long time. I like talking about things that are, impressive and novel, and things, especially things that have transformed my life that I have personal experience with. And so these 2-hour conversations, usually about phones and plans, ended up being like 30 minutes. They would pick the phone and pick a plan real fast. And as I'm setting up the activation and swapping over info from one phone to another, they're asking me questions about the berries. I was like, talking about the berry for over an hour, hour and a half with these people. And my bosses, the districts and the regionals and the owners of the company, when I put in my 2 weeks notice, they were like, no, 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 no. Today could be your last day. Go run and chase your dream with the business. You don't need to work here for your 2 weeks because they had heard this spiel so often, and they knew that I was onto something. And we did not know that I couldn't put in my 2 weeks until I knew we had a product. And the farmer told us that this was not a new concept of trying to preserve the berry, that it had been failed for over 3 decades. People had tried and failed. And he wasn't going to discourage us and say, no, don't do it if you're using my berries, but he wasn't going to encourage us either. He wanted us to remember that it was going to be a waste of time and money. And timing is such a funny thing because if I had tried to rush this right away, people often ask you, like, what's the regret or what would you do differently? And in the beginning, I thought, it would be great if I didn't wait 3 years to start the company because I'd be 3 years ahead, and how, what does that mean in terms of revenue and blah, blah, blah. But the year that we started was the year that Harvest Right made its first affordable home freeze dryer. And so freeze dryers are very, very expensive traditionally. They're, in the high to, about tens of thousands or low hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we didn't have that kind of money to experiment. We knew that would take a long time to experiment because, with so many people trying and failing, like obviously if it was easy, it would have been done by now. But few things happened to work in our favor that I couldn't predict. Harvest Right making its freeze dryer affordable, like 3,000. I can afford $3,000 for a freeze dryer. But it was still too big for my apartment. And these things are not, they're loud. So like when people call it a home freeze dryer, it's like, yeah, but you have to kind of like keep it away from your family because these things are much louder than a washing machine, and they take 30 plus hours to run a cycle. So I knew I needed to put it somewhere. And being in this restaurant scene, so connected to Giuliano in his restaurant world, and having friends in the restaurant scene, other food servers, friends of mine, I got introduced to the owner of Slice Truck Pizza, a very popular pizza place in West LA. And I pitched him on the idea after giving him a demo, and he was just floored by it, just loved the experience, and asked him, would you let us use your restaurant after you close to do our experiments with the freeze dryer? And he said, funny thing about our business model, being a pizza place, is that we wait for everybody else to close, and that's when we make our money. Like we make all our money at night. And but he said, I do have ownership of the place next door, and it's vacant right now. So if you make me an offer, I will, consider that, and you can put your freeze dryer in there. And just because I didn't know what to say, I just threw something out, and I was like, "How about 250 a month? We could afford that." And he said, if you write me a check for $750, you can have it for the next 3 months. And that was such a blessing, Dan. We were able to move it in there and start testing right away. And that's all Giuliano and I did. All we did was, stay on the phone with Harvest Right, making sure that we knew how to tweak and, fix. Sometimes we would break the machine and they would need to teach us how to fix it over the phone. And, the settings, there's there's almost a countless number of ways you could run a freeze dryer. So, we tried out a lot of settings, and I remember the first time that we got it to work after very close to 3 months, I was like, "Holy shnikes, Tommy boy, we have a product. We have something that, we didn't have to um, worry because it was consistently working." And we were still getting berries flown out overnighted from the farm in Miami. And the hypothesis was that if we moved the freeze dryer to Miami, within 2 hours of it being picked, we could get that fresh berry into the freeze dryer. And that would give us like a closer product to peak potency. And that's what it became. It became something we didn't have to use any, chemical-free preservation at peak potency. And our farmer, was absolutely floored that we were able to kind of crack the code. And I remember that first flight out to Miami. We stayed there like 10 days and we brought back, a lot of product. We brought back a lot of berries. It was a funny experience, but yeah, that was the first time that I knew that we had something very special. Could not sell it for the life of us. We took it to every single restaurant around, and we learned a lot of valuable lessons there about not bragging that you're the first. People don't like taking extra risk than they have to. Their business is already risky enough. If you want to be first to anything, focus on being first to mind because you are the best at what you're doing. And I had to learn that the hard way for like 6 or 7 months. We couldn't make a sale. And then we figured out Amazon. I remember our first sale on Amazon like it was yesterday. It was March 23rd, 2017. And I was like, wow, we have a customer here built in. And if it wasn't for Amazon, have to give credit where credit is due. Um, Obviously no system is perfect, but there's absolutely no way Nature's Wild Berry would be alive today if it wasn't for Amazon, the way the market was in 2017 and since. So, yeah, they are still our number one channel. Target has become number two only recently, and then Walmart Marketplace is picking up. It's competing with our Shopify store, so we've gotten to be kind of successful across marketplaces. We're on places that you wouldn't expect us as a gift option, like even party favors. But we have the best product for a fulfillment center, and that's kind of what I geek out the most right now, that we have 5 fulfillment centers that allow us to have a sub 2 day transit time for delivery. So we've kind of it took us 10 years to do it, but we have this kind of like Prime-esque like delivery in 2 days or less, because the product is perfect for ambient storage. We don't have to have a cold chain. It's small and it's very lightweight, and so the economics of transportation just work out really well for us. And we can do this drop shipping thing that a lot of these marketplaces love to do, and they love that it's not any longer than 2 days, and our customers freaking come back and order when they realize, oh, I could get it next day or 2 days and not have to pay like a lot on shipping.
Hank, this is a powerful point. Sometimes the first real channel tells you what the business wants to become. You were trying restaurants, but Amazon revealed where people were already searching, already curious, and already willing to buy. That's a lesson every founder should pay attention to. So, how long did it take you to get to that point where, like you said, you had a business on Amazon? Then, how long did it take you to scale to the point where you knew you had reoccurring sales, where you
Oh,
saw the
right
volume
away.
velocity? Oh, okay.
Right away. As soon as we got it on Amazon, um, we had enough to pay our bills and to turn a
Wow.
profit.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We had a lot. We never stopped producing inventory, even though we weren't selling. So we had a lot of inventory, and we were sitting on quite a lot. And luckily that that was the one channel that everybody was going to search for the keyword miracle berry. Almost nobody finds the miracle berry by typing in sweetener or artificial sweetener or natural sweetener or anything to do with sweeteners because um, technically it's not a sweetener. And the one keyword is the miracle berry. And thankfully, we didn't have to develop that keyword. We were second mover in the miracle berry market. Credit where credit is due. Mberry it started in 2006, and they're the huge, enormous gorilla in the miracle berry world. They're obviously now on their 20th year, and they specialize in tablets. And they've been uh, doing social media 10 years longer than we were. So we took a page right out of their playbook and we decided that social media slash these marketplaces were the best way to go because, they had been doing a great job of educating, but, we also needed to educate because our products were, similar, but very different. The red berry is in its red berry form, as you just showed our audience that it looks like a berry because it's preserved as a berry, but the tablet has additives and other things in there to preserve it as a tablet. But I noticed that when I was going out to events or the bar or the restaurant or whatever and sharing the berry, I could only imagine if I was trying to share a tablet, what people would think of me. Like, why are you trying to give me this tablet? What's in this thing? But when it's a berry, people can see, oh, it's still Mother Nature. And there's kind of this nature bias because we have a millennia of wondering, how delicious can a red berry be? In the
Mhm.
back of our animal minds. But it also, the tablet takes about 10 minutes to dissolve on your tongue if, you're doing it the right way. And the berry is a 30-second process. So that's a 20 times faster, experience. And, I've never had somebody say that the tablet tastes better than the berry. It's just not how it works. Like the berry is like, it kind of explodes in its Mother Nature flavor as it's preserved, like right after getting picked. So, that's always been kind of like in my mind, I was like, I always want to taste the berry, and I'll pass on the tablet. And then, it just became a matter of price also, because that's the, third thing or fourth thing that people care about. And the tablet is about $2 a tablet. So I priced this berry at $1 or less per serving. So, and our servings are one half of a berry. So technically, one berry is the same price as one tablet. But people always told us that, after I figured out how to do the whole coding thing, the half of a berry was plenty enough because it will last 15 to 20 minutes. And typically that's all I need it to do if I'm having a sweet snack or a breakfast or, blah, 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 blah. So a lot more scalable, a lot more approachable. And because we're trying to put it as many places as we can online right now, it's a lot more available.
How do you compete against that company now? Do you know how they're doing relative to you? I want to ask this because most founders often treat competitors like enemies, but often a competitor validates the category, educates the shopper, and proves there's a demand. How do you think about competing without turning this into a race to the bottom?
Oh, there's yeah, yeah, yeah. They have a a lot better marketing. They pay for their marketing. So I don't know, like obviously I can't tell you what their internal numbers are or how profitable they are, but
What are they a threat? I'm sorry. Are they a
they're
threat to
oh,
you?
they're not a no, they're not a threat, but they make more than us, but they're not a threat. I would never consider a competitor a threat. We have so much respect between our companies. They welcomed us when we first launched. They let us know like you have an open channel of communication,
Good.
um, and vice versa. We do talk to them occasionally. I kind of think that we have a future where we can do kind of like a Coke Pepsi challenge and kind of see like what people prefer out of the two of us. But it's nothing that I would ever consider a competitor a threat. We have um like I don't know, we separate ourselves quite a lot. Like we went with the non-GMO verified project early on. We felt like that kind of gave us a little bit of validation. Also, we this year we became non-UFP verified. So we have that second certification. We're looking at getting some more, but Shark Tank was a huge differentiator. Like the 18 months after Shark Tank, I think that we were outselling Barry. Of course, there's always going to be a correction after Shark Tank. You're going to come back down to earth, and that's why 2004 into 2005 was kind of an adjustment for me. And I'm like I mentioned in the very beginning of this interview, um, being a lean team has helped us not have to worry about um, letting people go. Honestly, I don't think that if we had a huge organization, that we would be where we are today. That's my
Hmm.
way of saying like we would have had to fire some of the people that we had hired for sure, because just the volatility in the market and having like a slow burn um, is not conducive to having large teams or even, I think that almost the biggest impact that Shark Tank has had for us is that we've gotten access to the teams of the Sharks. So our payroll and our cash flow has gotten to, be very predictable and affordable for us. The teams that they have given us and allotted to us that we would normally have to pay for have helped us collapse timeframes like in a huge, unimaginable or unexplainable way. So
That's fantastic. Let's talk about Shark Tank because this is important. A lot of founders see it as exposure, but for you, it sounds like it became validation, access, credibility, and speed. What made you decide this is the right path? Were you looking at other paths? And what was the plan if they didn't call you? What caused you to choose that route versus something else?
I knew we needed help from day one. Like we were going to need help for sure. So that was that wasn't like a light bulb moment for us. In fact, I applied to Shark Tank after our first year in 2017. I applied to it in 2018. Not surprising that I didn't hear back because 40,000 companies on average a year apply to Shark Tank. Um, but I was just a huge stinking fan ever since 2009. My friend showed me episodes in the first season, and I, started watching every single one, and then, became a personal dream of mine to be on the show after we launched in 2016. And so I would continuously religiously watch and bite my nails, being nervous that Barry or a competitor of ours would beat us to the show because it is millions of dollars in advertising that you're not paying for. It's hard to quantify exactly how much, but it's in the millions for sure. And just being a fan of the show, I always had my favorite sharks. And so when we got the callback, actually how we got the callback was interesting. In 2017 and 2018, I decided, I'm going to get to know the people who are making the decisions to be on the show. And I did that by becoming first connections with them on LinkedIn. And
Very cool.
I got to comment and read their posts and stuff like that. And so when it came time for the casting call, quite frankly, we were too busy during the pandemic to apply. Our numbers skyrocketed. We grew 4.5 times during the pandemic. Anyway, so yeah, we did Jennifer Garner was the first one who really popped off as an A-list celebrity, and she gave kind of this permission. I put it in quotes because she's just so well known and people love her so much. But that was because Ari Raz became a mentor to me. And LinkedIn is such a powerful place that I would highly suggest, especially if you're a founder or you make decisions in your company because you're in a position of being a decision maker. You get on LinkedIn and you get to know people who are posting regularly or have interesting things to say in your field. It sounds a little cliche because you probably have heard that a couple times by now, but I can't really underscore the importance of it because almost every positive thing in the business in one way or another kind of started because of a relationship built on LinkedIn. So, and that includes all the trade shows that you go to and all the people that you ended up becoming really close, like friends with. And I don't want to put friends in quotes because some of these people I really consider friends now. But yeah, but Shark Tank happened because I didn't want my application to get lost amidst the 40,000 applicants. So I just DM'd them and said, yeah, no special treatment. Just want to make sure that my application was received. And in 2 weeks, we got the call to be a guest on the show. And they end every conversation with, the next step is not guaranteed. You made it this far, and congratulations, but there's no guarantees of moving after this step. And so you get used to hearing that, but it was about a year process from the time that we applied to the time that we aired. Is May to May actually, that it took us, and it was a stack of paperwork, and you had to, like, if you are not accurate with any of those sheets, it could lead to you not having your deal completed during due diligence. And I have to tell you, another thing that Giuliano is responsible for is making sure that we replied so fast, like within 24 hours of any ask, and our numbers were spot on because he was on top of all of that paperwork game. So yeah, couldn't do it without him. And I feel like we did need this external validation from the Sharks. They're as we grow into retail, they're instrumental in opening doors. The buyers care about having a story that is something that people want to listen to, and they care about the re-airing, and that's a real thing. Like, that's built in marketing all the time, and and countless other ways that they're helping us. Like, there's a movie coming out about Shark Tank next month. It's called Breadwinner, starring Mandy Moore. And because they're executive producers on the show, they're producers on this movie. And Lori was able to secure us some product placements. So I can't wait to watch this in the theater
Wow.
and see Nature's Wild Berry right there in the grocery store. But I can't, like, so many different ways. I can't talk about it all the time. I'd be talking about all day, like all the ways to help us. But we needed help for sure. We needed to make sure that the company was the last mover instead of known to being the first mover, because no one cares about the first, but people care about the last man standing. And so that was our strategy. And throughout the process, I knew that we would need to have protection, IP patent protection, and but we ended up getting it. So now that
Good.
we have that, and we have a pretty good plan to demo constantly in retail, and we have executed on our plan with Shark Tank and education online. I think that we're about ready for retail, and we're going to go slow, of course, and just one person at a time demoing, and one location at a time demoing. And I know that that's way too slow for most people, but thank goodness we have a business that does e-commerce well, and that's going to help us grow where people kind of relate to food the most, in the grocery store.
Fantastic. I introduced you to Andrew Therian of Samplers. In fact, he was on podcast episode 317. He's going to help you a lot. He is a demo expert. He can help you scale a lot faster if you want. This is where your story connects directly to retail strategy. Your product does not just sit on a shelf and explain itself. It needs education. It needs demonstration. It needs the shopper to experience the difference. That changes how you have to think about retail expansion. So let's talk about that for a minute. How do you make those connections?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, over 10 years, through LinkedIn, through our connections out of Los Angeles, we have people that really believe in the brand,
Good.
and they have seen the Berry work firsthand, not just on them, but their friends and their family. And they love, just like me, kind of feeding off people's reactions. And so they have agreed, like, a week or two ago. Allison Kane, who you probably know from LinkedIn, if
Oh,
anyone, anyway,
okay. No, I don't.
she did a huge event at Columbia Business School, and so one of my favorite people to ever do demos for us decided that she was available that night, and so we were able to pay her to show up and give us a presence. And we do the same thing in Chicago and Miami and Dallas Fort Worth. So we have these one-off kind of ambassadors that are instrumental in just being there where Giuliano and I can't physically be there. But if it's in Los Angeles, like last week, I did the SoCal vegan or SoCal Veg Fest. Yeah,
Mm.
and so this was about 2,000 people almost in Hollywood that showed up for basically a free event, and they were just buying from vendors who they enjoyed the products of, and so those are the exact type of events that we do very well at. We get the health certificate, we show up there with minimal amount of overhead, and we have a lot of product. And, it's just about like, can you sustain the energy? And the way I do that is because I love watching people. I genuinely love watching people's reactions, and it genuinely never gets old for me after 13, 14 years of doing demos. To watch somebody new try the berry and see how are they going to react, because it's predictable, but everyone you usually fall into certain categories of reactions. And even with kids, I kneel down and get on their level, their eye level, and I walk them through it. And parents have told me over and over, like, we've never seen our kids love fruit or react this way around fruit ever. And if I do have help, like my chef will slice the fruit super thin because the kids will eat $600 worth of fruit. Other different kind of niches around this type of space where you wouldn't expect a food brand to show up and do demos, but yeah,
Well, it's experience. I mean, that's what we were
it
talking
is
about
an
the first time
experience.
is
Yeah.
that you love being able to help people with that, help people walk through it. So thank you. And then of course, if I hadn't had your help, I'm sure I would have done it wrong too. Because most of us aren't patient enough to chew for 30 minutes, 30 seconds and try. But it worked out real well. So thank you.
Do that or just read the instructions, like
Yeah.
it is very few people like reading, but I've noticed that this does well when people explain it on video, or it does well when a doctor explains it to a patient. Oh, that's another cool thing I'm really excited about. We just got HSA approval to sell through our website so health savings
Oh.
accounts can make payments.
Before we go any further, I want to frame this carefully. We're not giving medical advice here. What is powerful about your story is that real customers are sharing personal experiences around taste, food enjoyment, and quality of life. That is inspiring, and it also shows you why you have to be disciplined about how you communicate the mission.
And we're also approved to be marketing it with for people who have lost their appetites. So the more we educate people about that, the more I think that we'll kind of get to stuff that has driven me for a long time. I open up and I share about, the main reason why I became a emotional eater was in my 20s, in my late 20s. My mom and my dad were diagnosed with cancer 18 months apart. So my mom got diagnosed earlier, and then my dad got diagnosed, and I know what it's like to lose a parent because of cancer. My dad passed in 2011, and I know what it's like to have a survivor as a parent because my mom has uh, been a survivor throughout the process, a two-time survivor now. And so I speak about it very personally. And I've always felt like, oh man, this would be really awesome to have an impact in this area. I think it's just the beginning of Miracle Berries as medical food. And so I'm very excited about the future there.
Did you ever anticipate that when you were starting?
Well, so many people wrote about it. The
Okay.
article, the journalists were writing about that before we got involved in like 2012, 2011.
Oh,
And so journalists don't have a problem. don't have a problem writing about it because there's no liability on their end. The brands have you can't talk about it unless you can prove it, for a brand standpoint. So we're kind of handcuffed with what we could talk about. I help a lot of people already who are tapped into that world, improve their quality of life too.
That's encouraging. Thank you for sharing that. Hank, I wanted to bring this back to the founder lesson. What I hear in your story is patience, proof, and discipline. You did not rush into every channel. You kept learning from real shoppers, real feedback, and real behavior. This is exactly how brands earn the right to scale. So thank you for sharing that. What else would you like to share?
Um, I think that because the economy is the way it is, there haven't been an, a lot of people feeling like they want to be stuck in a job that feels like it's going nowhere. Like a lot of people I've noticed, in customer service roles or retail roles or even some sales roles, um, have been opening up businesses of their own. Like I think if you take a look at the number of business, applications, it's never been higher than right now. And so, I know what it feels like to, make, 2,500 or $3,000 a month, in a place like LA, and feel like I'm in my 30s. What's the next 10 years or 15 or 20 years going to look like? And it can get a little bit discouraging, when you kind of look at it through that lens. But I would actually argue that if you're in customer service or sales or retail, in your 20s or your 30s or any age really, what you're doing is you're staying really sharp because everything that you do in your own business is going to revolve around communicating with people. And I think that you only lose that when, you stop, being around a lot of people. And, you never know what is going to come into your world. So what I do know is that if I followed a lot of my friends who got finance degrees, because I got a finance degree too, it would have been extremely difficult for me to give that up and start a business, especially one that's as risky and time consuming as this. So I actually think that if you change your perspective and don't look at it like it's a negative, but a positive, if you're in a role like that, that, you're actually positioned really well as long as you have the patience, and the fortitude, to see it through. So once you're one amazing product away from, your what can kind of define your life for your career. And, the world is such a huge place. This is definitely an example of how reality is stranger than fiction. Like, there are magic berries. There are, like, Willy Wonka is in a product, like Mother Nature gave it to us. Like it's pretty crazy. So, that kind of thing can happen to you. Like I'm learning about these fruits that have been written about for hundreds of years that no one knows about that are just ready to go to market. So, um, doesn't have to be in the food world or anything like that. But I think that, you're in a very good spot, if you're, you know, in a retail sales or customer service position. I think that you just, might not see it that way, but I think that you're in a really great spot.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. Well, this has been a great conversation. What I appreciate most is that this is not about a product story. This is a founder story. It's about resilience, education, curiosity, and building a brand one experience at a time. For founders listening, that's the real key takeaway. Build something people can feel, understand, and repeat. Thank you so much for coming on, and thanks for connecting with me on LinkedIn. I appreciate it. It's been great to get to know you, and I love your positive energy. So thank you for that.
Oh man, Dan. I've been watching, just to give you some feedback, man. I've been watching you for years, and, what you have talked about, I let just kind of soak in like a sponge, and, it's definitely become a part of my pitch that I need to, focus on somebody else's perspective and not my own. when I'm going into retail specifically. And a lot of people just think, you can walk into a meeting and say, "Oh, I've got the best tasting this and that, and you need us, and we're gonna blow up sales and all that." But really, the important part is considering what they want. And they want a product that's a premium product because that's gonna give them better margins, but it's not enough to be an expensive fill in the blank. Like you need to drive in a premium buyer to buy that product. And, that needs to, initiate some sort of curiosity that can, sell. The velocity goes up across categories. That way, when they check out, they have a fuller basket at checkout. And this is like me being like an adva- like I'm like one of your disciples because you've been
Thanks.
saying
Amen.
this forever. But that's exactly how, when I look at our product, that's exactly the points that I want to make to buyers out there. So thank you for being the guiding light, I would like to say.
Well, I appreciate your saying that. You're too kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun, and I could see you being a tremendous basket builder for any retailer. So I wish you all the luck in that space when you get in. You'll have to let me know how things go.
I sure will. I think this is a part one. Maybe we'll do a part
Oh,
two.
no, I would like that. Thanks. I'd like that.
Yes,
Thanks.
sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate your coming on. Thanks. You don't have a sales problem, you have a visibility problem. Most brands rely on reports to understand their business, but those reports don't show you what actually happened in store. The retail audit checklist helps you quickly identify gaps in execution, placement, pricing, and promotion so you can fix what's costing you sales. This is one of the fastest ways to improve performance without spending more. If you want to see what others miss and act faster, download the retail audit checklist in the show notes. Thanks again for joining us today. Please reach out and share your most pressing questions, and I'll do my best to get you the answers that you need on future episodes, including with expert advice from CEOs and industry thought leaders. Comment, leave your questions, and get this week's free downloadable guide and the show notes at retailsolve.com/session 318.